What is going on, everybody? Welcome in to the North End Podcast, episode 28, our Alfonso Ocampo Chavez episode. I'm your host here on the North End Podcast. My name is Zach Graham, and I am joined, as always, by my good buddy, on record as my best friend. It's Ian Michaud, a.k.a. E, a.k.a. Leigh James, a.k.a. Sebastian Drew Easy, a.k.a. Easterdamus, a.k.a. Pap E. O'Daniel, a.k.a. Chili Willie, a.k.a. Ian Stonkel. E, cold day here in Austin, Texas, Tuesday, January 31st. We are one day away from getting into the month of February, of course. That's when the MLS regular season begins. Obviously, our countdown is on, 25 days until the season opener. How you feeling, man?
I am well. Do you have like a master list that you read off when you do the AKAs there?
I haven't memorized at this point.
You do? Okay. And
Yeah.
you just add some in when you're feeling frisky?
Yeah.
Okay. I am well. It is quite cold, as you mentioned. I think we got another day of being cold here, and then probably be 85 and sunny on Friday.
Right.
But yes, we are one day away from moving into February and getting into some soccer, and that's all good. That's good business for me.
Yeah. I mean, at least the soccer that counts, right? We've got some soccer to talk about today of the preseason variety. And also looking forward to a home preseason match coming up this Saturday. Again, closed to the public, or as you know, to the best of the club's ability. I forget who I should credit with the quote that our hill is taller than their doors or their walls. So until they build a larger fence out there, I guess I won't give the club any ideas. I don't know. I'm excited to go out there. That's our plan, to be out there.
Mm-hmm.
I actually just picked up, and I off on a tangent here to start, I guess, as per usual. Visited my grandpa and grandma down in Canyon Lake this past weekend. They're actually moving to back to Houston. They're going to go into a nursing home out there. They're both like right around 90. So it's that time. But, you know, visiting with them, and of course my grandpa is like, oh, you see anything you like around the house, you know, you take it with you. And, you know, he's an avid outdoorsman, hunter, fisherman, all that stuff. And so there was a pair of really high-end binoculars.
Ooh.
And I thought, we're about to be standing on Verde Hill, so let me take these binoculars. Thank you, Granddad. And now we've got some binoculars in tow. So if you see, that's, I guess, how you can find us out there on the hill, is if you see some doofus with oversized binoculars watching the game. That's me.
Well, I mean, can we share one lens per? Because I don't own a pair of binoculars. So
yeah, you know, I think that
left, right.
I think that's what we're gonna have to do. You know.
Okay.
Although, and I will go off on another tangent here. You know, I don't know if you've met my sister Zoe's boyfriend, Jeff.
Yes.
Jeff. Yeah, you met Jeff. He is an avid collector of binoculars, apparently. I didn't know this. Wow. But I was told that how he deals with poor drivers in Austin, and you know, there's a lot of them, especially out there on Mopac. I guess shout out Evil Mopac. If somebody, you know, like cuts him off or something, you know, stop short, whatever, he would pull up next to them at a stoplight, and he's got a pair of binoculars in the car at all times, and he'll look at them through the binoculars as he pulls up next to them. So anyways, if you're still with us after 2+ minutes of binoculars talk, we'll go ahead and get into some of the stuff you're here for, right? The Austin FC talk, everybody's favorite team. Again, like we mentioned, coming off the second of 2 preseason matches out there in Florida, the 12-day trip that the team took for, you know, like a little spring training down there in Florida. I guess we can just start there. Because of course that was last Friday, and you know, of course we were out there, you know, trying to gather up all the crumbs, put together the starting 11 if we could, and find any sort of takeaways that we could from a mostly meaningless match. 3-2 was the final score. Austin coming up short again, the second 3-2 preseason loss in a row. But I think we did learn some things here.
We did.
Or at least we can overreact and we can read too much into, a game that doesn't count. The initial 11 that started, and again, there was some jokes being thrown around at the admin's expense. Apparently they played 4 30-minute periods, so 120 minutes of soccer out there on Friday. Initially the club had tweeted, we're playing 4 halves. And of course, people jumped all over that. But I think we got what they were saying, right? It was 2 60-minute matches. With
I did not get what they were saying there. I thought, there might have been 2 games.
Yeah, I mean, we saw a completely different 11 start the second 60 minutes. But the first 11 out there was really interesting, especially up front. I guess you could also say on the back line, because we saw Sal Mazzaferro, again, the 72nd overall selection this past December, get the start paired with Kip Keller there at center back, John Gallagher on the left, Hector Jimenez on the right. So no surprises there. Johan Valencia and Alex Ring in the defensive midfield. And then up front, you saw a group of Diego Fagundes, Rodney Redis, Ethan Finley, and Austin FC 2 player David Rodriguez, who, of course, assisted on Valentin Noel's goal against the Union the previous week. But what's notable about those front 4, there's no striker there. So there was some speculation about who was up front. We initially decided it was Rodney Redis based on a few of the clips that we could see. But then Landon Cotham pointed out that in one of the clips, you can kind of see Diego coming back to the ball and suggested that maybe he was playing in a sort of false 9 role up there. Yep. So clearly the team trying something different there with the first 11 that they rolled out. And I believe after that first 60 minutes, it was 2-2. First goal scorer was David Rodriguez, making a huge impact here in the preseason. First 2 appearances with the first team. And again, on that Austin FC 2 contract. So he will not be able to play with the first team this season. But a goal and an assist. Again, I understand it's meaningless games, and we can all point to the Pochettino performances, the Rodney Redis preseason performances of the past that, didn't pan out once the games started counting, once the Verde lights turned on. But it certainly doesn't hurt to see this young guy coming in and looking so comfortable with a bunch of the first team members. I guess, are you expecting, we'll talk a little bit about Austin FC 2, of course, here in a little bit, but good performance from the young guy here so far. Maybe we're expecting bigger things from him when we're tuned into those next pro games this year.
I mean, I'll always take a goal and assist over no goals and no assists, even if it is preseason. He's also in a bit of a different situation, obviously being on the young boys team. We're just going to have to keep saying that until it eventually becomes
until it catches on.
He's obviously in a different position than when we saw with Pochettino and with Rodney in the preseason, having impactful games because he knows he's not going to be playing up with the boys. He's not going to be in these matchups. So I think, he took the most of his opportunity, and I'm not going to be upset at that or get my expectations up to a point where, it would be a disappointment if he didn't make some sort of large impact on the Austin FC 2. So I do think it's a little different. Again, it looked like we're trying some new stuff, trying to get some guys maybe a little more comfortable elsewhere throughout our lineup. And again, we're just trying to stay healthy here in the preseason, and we'll take it as it comes. And, we're tracking perfectly moving into the season in about 26 days. So yeah, I'm fine with it.
Yeah. I mean, again, I don't have too much to add there. It's better than no goals and no assists.
Yeah,
to be sure. The second goal, and I actually think this came in the second half. So I think it was 1-1 after the first, and not second half, the second 60-minute period there. So I guess it technically would be the third quarter was the second goal. And that was scored by Gyasi Zardes. And I guess we can go ahead and get into what we thought the second 11 was. Zardes was up top, as I just said. Of course, Zardes not going to be played anywhere but the 9. Then behind him, Sebastian Driussi, Emiliano Rigoni, and the first team preseason debut of one Micah Burton, who was out there wearing 29. So first of all, the goal. We've got such limited clips of the team in action this preseason, but I don't know how an Austin FC fan could watch this clip of this goal and not get extremely excited, because not only was this goal assisted by Driussi, but then, like, if we're playing a regular season match, and we know that MLS loves to give out those secondary assists, the hockey assist, if you will, that secondary assist would have gone to Emiliano Rigoni, who set Seba up in space to make that cross. So just for me, to see those 3 guys combining like that in the preseason is nothing but promising. So I absolutely love to see that. I don't know if you saw the clip or not.
I have not seen the Zardes goal. But yes, I mean, shoot, those 3, we are hoping for some really nice synergy. I'll use some other buzzwords here, some good cohesion. But yeah, I mean, and what an attack it really could be with those 3 up front if they are meshed and playing well.
Yeah.
Obviously,
add Diego Fagundes to that group, right?
Exactly.
In the Burton spot.
Obviously, we saw the type of chemistry and connection that we had there in the middle, particularly Seba, Diego, and Maxi. And now you add in a talent like Giassi, and man, it's exciting and it's promising. I will take a look at that goal to see, because it sounds like it was quite the strike.
Yeah, I'm actually staring at it right now as we speak. So I'll shoot it to you so you can watch it live here.
Oh shit! Live reaction. It's like an unboxing.
as you do that, the rest of that lineup: Danny Pereira, Sophie Jeffel in the defensive midfield, then Zan Kolmanic, Kip Keller, Nick Lima on the back line. And I believe it was, confirmed that Julio Cascante did get in there to pair up with Kip. So you see Kip playing both halves or segments or games, whatever you want to call them. And then I believe we did get confirmation as well that Damian Loss was in net there at some point, because when Brenner scored, we'll talk about Brenner in a little bit when we get to the MLS segment, Damian Loss was in net. He's just a nice little freeze frame of him looking back at Brenner just tapping it in. And so, I mean, we get it right in the defensive midfield, all 4 of those guys that we expect to contribute this year, with Ring and Valencia in the first segment, Danny and Sophie in the second segment. Good to see all of those guys getting in there, different combinations of the 4 over these first 2 matches. And I imagine we'll continue to see some mix and matching going on from the coaching staff at those 2 positions. We talked about the center back pairings. One guy we did not see play was Johan Romaña, and it was then discussed in Josh Wolf's media availability at Monday's practice back here in Austin that Romaña is not fit. And that is not a trend. That is a trend with Johan Romaña over his first 2+ years here. So, like, I guess, what are your thoughts after the guy came in clearly out of shape last year, and to hear Josh Wolf say that again now in 2023 with the season just over 3 weeks away? We'll talk about our net. We did sign another center back, so we've got some more reinforcements. There are 5 now on the first team, but if Johan Romaña continues to just be like out of shape and or injured, because he struggled with the lower body injuries, right? So those soft tissues, like the calf, has kept him out. The cramps, we see it. Like, if he plays more than a half in a game, like, I feel like he goes down.
For sure.
What are your thoughts there? Like, is this a guy that you see maybe not being around much longer?
I mean, that's incredibly disappointing. especially for coach to really make a point of emphasis that he's not ready.
Yeah.
And I mean, I don't know if the injuries that he deals with are compounded by his frame and his size. Obviously, he's a naturally large human being. But, you know, losing some weight, being in better shape could pay dividends in the long run in terms of staying healthier. I think absolutely it comes into play when you're looking at how often he would be cramping in games. So that is really disappointing. And also, you know, like the buzz around Ruben leaving had been around for so long that there was an opportunity, a chance for him to carve out more playing time here, to earn a large role on the team. And, you know, at the end of the day, like, your availability is the most important thing about you being a professional athlete.
Yeah. It's an ability, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And so he has not shown any sort of promise that he can keep this under control. And really, I mean, like you said, we saw him at the end of the last season where it was just multiple games where he'd have to be sitting down for 3 minutes.
Yeah.
You have to be stretched out for a long period of time where he's out of the game.
Yeah.
And like,
well, I think we've got the new rules coming in from Next Pro. I think it's this season where, like, if you have to go off, like if you're down, the ref will send you off and you can't come back for like 2 or 3 minutes.
Wow.
I think that I believe that's one of those, like, right, we see that sometimes in our basketball world where like they test rules in the G League and bring them up. I believe that's what they're doing from Next Pro to MLS. I'm not 100% certain that that's taking effect this season, but if it is, that's just, you know, further backs up your point there.
Absolutely. And I mean, I could see them absolutely instituting that this year. Because I mean, you talk to the casual fan, you know, who might be wanting to get into soccer, who might be wanting to be a fan of the MLS. And that's their thing. That's their thing, you know.
Right.
It's like these guys fall down, they lay down too much, they writhe in pain, and then they pop up and they're playing again. And you know, that's one of the main talking points. And my only rebuttal to that usually is, look, man, it's just part of the game at this point. Like, these dudes are running 90 minutes, going absolutely, you know, full exertion, sprinting, maintaining like a 5K throughout the game.
Right.
So I understand it, and it is part of the game, but I also understand the argument where people are saying, you know, I don't want to see that. And I get that. So this seems like it would be an interesting rule. Obviously, if you have a guy who's like actually injured, not doing, you know, and trying to stay on the pitch so that we're not a man down, or the team is not a man down for however long that, you know, not a penalty, but duration of time is that the ref would say you can't come onto the field.
It's almost like a penalty box in hockey, right?
Yeah, kind of, for sure. And I said it was disappointing that Johan doesn't seem ready, and it really is disappointing. Like, that's not good. Not being in shape when you're a soccer player. Like, one, I don't even know how that happens, because you're training all the time.
Right.
So I know you mentioned previous when we were talking off air that he did have somewhat of a rebuttal to it, or you know, like a kind of a shot, but nothing directed. Where
just like almost like kind of like a sub post, almost like a sub tweet, but I think it was on his Instagram. Right. It's like on his story, he posted somebody who was talking about, you know, you put in a ton of work and then one thing happens and this and that. But I mean, I guess I should also credit where we got the quote from was Phil West over there at the Striker. We love Phil, obviously. The quote was, "We were a little short on center backs in our last game against Cincinnati. Romaña had a calf injury, which he attributed to, quote, not being fit enough to really fulfill what preseason is about." And so that's just, it's obviously something to watch. And
Romaña attributed the calf.
No, Wolf.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Because I thought they were saying that he was using that as his like excuse there. But I mean,
no.
And yes, it is frustrating to be an athlete, to work really hard, and then suffer some sort of injury and setback. And it feels like everything, the progress you made is for naught.
Mm-hmm.
But that's part of the game, man.
Mm-hmm.
That's part of what it is to be a professional athlete. You have to figure out some sort of way to push yourself to these situations. And again, bare minimum is being in shape.
Right. Yeah, no question about it. We also, we're talking center backs here. And what was a nice surprise a couple days before that match was that Leo Väisänen showed up in Florida.
Yes, he did.
And I think that happened right after we recorded last week's episode. So I don't think we talked about Leo's arrival in Florida on the pod.
Not on the pod.
Okay. But so Josh had comments about Leo as well. He said Leo got involved a little late down there, so they didn't want to risk him in any of the preseason games, which makes sense. Like, I don't think any of us expected to see him in there on Friday. I don't think it's out of the question that we see him a little bit this coming Saturday against El Paso.
Agreed.
But certainly not for any lengthy run, maybe 15, 20 minutes. So we'll see. He said, we don't want to risk Leo. We got him up to speed. And he said, I think today he gets in and we'll do a lot of video with him. And again, that was during Monday's practice media availability. So doing a little bit more work here. Again, I think there is a chance we see him ramped up enough to make an appearance out there this coming Saturday.
I agree with that. Yeah.
Obviously the team back in ATX now. I imagine practice today was canceled, probably got a little maybe an indoor workout, but I guess the guys couldn't really travel to the facility very well with the icy road conditions. So that's a bummer, to be honest, because, the prep for this preseason game, while the game doesn't count, still important days. You don't get a ton of them before the games start counting.
Absolutely. You want to get into a rhythm. You want to know what you're doing before pregame when the game is actually coming on and it's the regular season and the lights are on. So it's all about establishing a good rhythm and, like we said, cohesion and chemistry with the unit. And man, I think Leo definitely gets involved, if not only just to get him some game time run.
Right. Get a little sweat out there against some real, full speed competition.
Facts. Yes.
So, I guess we can still stick with the center backs here. We kind of mentioned the fifth signing there, although I'm certain that this guy is probably not going to be sitting fifth on the center back depth chart, given just the happenings over the last week. We got the smoke from Anthony Precourt last week, kind of late week, maybe Thursday night, Friday morning, something. I think it was Friday morning.
Yes.
And to be honest, man, like my own personal reaction when the team dropped who was actually being signed was like, who?
Yeah. Yeah. I just saw the Snoop Dogg tweet.
Yeah, certainly who? Never. I've never heard of him, but apparently like the name has been in one of my ears and out the other before, because obviously longtime Moon Tower soccer listener. And apparently those guys, when they were doing mock expansion drafts back before the 2021 season, they had mentioned his name as a guy that they wanted the team to draft. So I guess we can talk a little bit more about Amro Tarek. I believe that's how it's pronounced here. Born in LA, but moved to Egypt at an early age. So you see, we're setting up that pipeline to eventually get Mo Salah here in his later years.
Yeah, that's the one.
So Tarek is a 30-year-old defender who plays primarily as a center back. I believe in his career, certainly in his younger days, was moved around a bit. I think played some fullback, maybe even played up a little bit. This is a sizable player, no matter what position. He's now our tallest player on the senior roster at 6'4". And his lengthy professional career. Again, I said he's 30 years old. This will be his 12th year as a professional soccer player. And this guy has really bounced around, not just from team to team, but league to league. And it's mostly between MLS and the EPL, which Egyptian Premier League in this case.
Yep.
But MLS wise, right, which is what we're more concerned with, I think here, was on loan with Columbus Crew in 2016, Orlando City in 2018. He then spent 2019 to 2021 with New York Red Bulls. 45 total MLS appearances so far in his career. And I think quite notable here, and probably one of the reasons that those Moon Tower guys and whoever else they were doing those expansion mocks with 2+ years ago brought him up, is that in 2016, when he was with the Crew, he was coached by Josh Wolf, who was the assistant to Berhalter there in Columbus at the time. So there's a lot of familiarity between Coach Wolf and I think by extension probably his staff and Tarek. He's left-footed, and I believe that makes him our only left-footed center back, I think. Which adds just kind of another option or another, right? It's another attribute that you want to have in your, stable of center backs, I think.
Yes, I agree.
So he's most recently played out there in Egypt once again. Played one season in 2021 with Oguna FC. And then before moving to his most recent club where he comes to Austin from El Masri SC, he joined them in September 2022. So obviously a very short stint with El Masri for Tarek. 110 career appearances in the Egyptian Premier League for Tarek. He's going to take a senior roster spot, and it's one guaranteed season, and then we've got a team option on next year. So again, potentially another short stint for Tarek, but I think he's going to play a pretty sizable role this year, especially compared to how much time some of our center back depth has gotten in the past. And not for nothing, I feel like, and this is just totally speculation on my part, my young, soccer fandom, at least the intense fandom that I have now for this team. Like, it feels like the older a center back is, potentially, they get some of that wisdom, as a veteran, especially in MLS, and maybe better as he gets a little bit older, before you fall off the athleticism cliff, so to speak.
I mean, this dude's been everywhere.
Yeah, I was gonna say, what are your takeaways here on Tarek? Because I think there's a pretty low floor here. Like, I think he could also come in and do not very much, but I think there's also a high ceiling where he's like in the rotation, and we're not like, oh, Tarek's starting today, that's a surprise. Like, I think he's a guy that could really contribute.
I agree with you. I mean, you just look at, I'm looking at his transfer market right now, and just the amount of teams that this dude has been on.
Yeah.
I mean, he's even got stints in, he's with Real Betis.
Earlier in his career, right?
Wolfsburg too. So, like, he's really been all around, which I'm assuming and I'm hoping, makes him somewhat of a consummate professional.
Right. He can fit in different places.
Exactly. He knows how to get the job done. He knows where, he's going to be needed at different points. And again, let's circle back to Romaña.
Yeah.
And now this door is wide open, man. Yeah. Like, not that we were expecting Romaña to be what you anticipated Tarek might be, right? In regard to being like, okay, here's a spot start, or here's a consistent, you've been playing great for 3-4, weeks. We get you in the starting lineup for a whole week, and we're rolling with it. So yeah, there's opportunity to be had at that center back position, and if you're versatile, like Tarek is, that's only going to help you get more minutes. Now, it is a little interesting with him being left-footed, and if that limits where we could really move him around to be successful. I don't know how great I feel about. I mean, I don't know. I do think that he will be a player that we see in some spot starts and are like, okay, we feel good about this.
Right.
This isn't like we're falling off a cliff. I mean, if Romaña was getting the spot starts, then that would be like, oh shit.
Right. We've got nerves about that pretty much anytime he starts a meaningful game.
Exactly. And it's like, all right, well, is he going to go down? Is he going to go on a solo mission?
Right.
But yeah, I'm excited for Tarek, and a late kind of sign here, late kind of snag, and we had this open spot, and I'm satisfied with it, even though it came out of left field, essentially.
Right. And it's obviously, again, not a long-term commitment there. So it just, again, we've been wanting, not just us, it seems like the majority of Austin fans been wanting that fifth center back, and a center back that can legitimately contribute, not like no hate on Freddie Kleeman. But I don't think we ever expected Freddie Kleeman to make a huge impact in the year that he was here, and obviously was out on loan, tore his ACL, etc. But again, raising the floor of the center back stable, and I think that's what was most important to a lot of Austin fans. That's not the only personnel changes we have to discuss here, both on the player and coach side. First, this morning, again today, January 31st, is the deadline day for the European transfer window. So a lot of things happening today, a lot of moving parts around MLS. We'll talk about some of the big names moving on from some of the other teams, but I would say a big name here as a U22 initiative player on the way out. We've been wondering where the Moose was really since preseason began, and now we know Moose has been in France. We knew he was training there, right? But he has now been loaned officially. Let me pull this back up here. The team announced, both teams announced in the last few hours. AC Ocasio, again, if you've been listening to us for more than just this episode, and if this is your first episode, welcome in. We appreciate you being here. But you know that the pronunciation's not my strong suit. But the most important thing here, this is a club that is in League One out there in France. So top tier French soccer. Of course, Moose came to us from League Two, so a step up for him as well. This team is in the relegation fight currently. If the season ended today, would be relegated, but this season goes into the summer. So this loan is for the rest of the French season. They do have, I believe, a purchase option or like a transfer option on this loan. So my thought here, I don't think we're going to see him again.
Nope. I've seen some people try to float that copium.
Yeah, including myself. Like at first,
I don't think he's coming back. I feel like all this entire offseason, there's been writing on the wall for it. He's obviously more comfortable over there, and that's totally understandable.
Right.
And yeah, I don't, a younger kid who they can develop. Obviously, if it goes well and they stave off relegation, they're going to be really feeling good about the signing if he makes, the impact that we think he can make.
I hope he gets a bunch of minutes here.
It's a big step up for him. Going to be seeing some really great competition. I definitely do not have my fingers crossed that we'll ever see him in the Verde Black again anytime soon.
Right.
But
certainly not live. We will see him forever in our history books, right? First hat trick ever. We can never take that away from Musa, and you can never take the Moose away from us fully. We'll always remember that one.
Absolutely. And I mean, honestly, man, the Gabrielson loss and this loss, two fan favorites, two people who seem like genuinely good human beings that really had a connection with this fan base. And he will be missed sorely because, I mean, shoot, man, every time he came in when we were at the stadium, it was awesome.
Oh, yeah.
It was awesome.
Well, like,
hype
the goals, the him showing up in the box score didn't always happen. It didn't happen very frequently, right? Yeah. Scored 5 goals, obviously 3 of them in one game off the bench. But that's not the only thing. Like, we called him the big body for a reason, right? That hold-up play was above average at worst, I think, from what we've seen over these first 2 seasons with all the teams coming through and obviously on our own squad here. So losing that, I think, is a blow as well.
Absolutely. Especially when we lost Sessi initially.
Yeah, for sure.
Because that was our hold-up game. And it was a big void in our attack where, sometimes we couldn't figure out if we had enough guys we wanted to advance and make an attacking play.
Right.
So yeah, that is a big hole to fill.
I mean, ultimately, I think this move is 100% based on, maybe not 100%, but mostly based on the fact that I think that's probably where his child is.
Yes.
Because he was in France already, and the child was born last season. So maybe they're still in Senegal, but regardless, I think this move was mostly made just for his family. And you can't argue with that.
Totally.
Yeah.
It was definitely for personal reasons.
Well, and with Zardes coming in, it could also be some of that. And I don't fault. Then I think also the club has, some intention like, hey, let's get you some minutes because you're probably not going to play a ton behind Zardes and Arruti. But we also have FC2 for that. So, like, I don't know. I just don't hold it against him. I wish him all the luck in the world, whether we see him again or not.
Absolutely. Sorely missed. Wish him all the best. And clearly just another player that, again, we're dealing with this international market, players from all across the world, for the first time in our fanhood experience. And this is a hazard of the occupation. You lose guys to go back home. We didn't fault Gabrielson for it, and I'm not going to fault Moose for it. Just a big thank you to both of those players and wishing them all the best and happiness off the pitch as well.
Yeah. And it does appear like we thought that that the smoke on Friday may have been for the rumored Will Bruin. Again, back up in Seattle most recently, was a free agent, striker, big guy, veteran guy, I believe 32 years old, if I'm not mistaken. We don't have confirmation of a contract agreement yet, but he is confirmed in Austin. He's trialing with the team, and he was confirmed in Florida. We just didn't know it because we had him in the crumbs last week.
Yep.
Mystery player. Didn't know, it was in the Hector crumbs, right? On the mic'd up video for Hector Jimenez, which, by the way, that was great content. Like, do that again, media team. But yeah, he was out. So he was in Florida. So I think like all signs point to Will Bruin, that announcement coming soon. Any thoughts there? Like, I'm not super excited. If he's our third striker, fine. I'd rather have Moose, but like he's a fine third stringer.
Same. That's exactly how I feel. Just a placeholder until next season as well.
For sure. And it's like, can Ocampo Chavez, can he beat him out? Maybe. We haven't seen. I guess that's also something to, apologies for like jumping back to the preseason match, but like a couple guys we haven't seen yet. Ocampo Chavez is one of them. Or I guess we have not confirmed that they've gotten minutes in the first two preseason games. It's not streamed, so they could get out there for 2 minutes, for 20 minutes. We don't know. But alongside Ocampo Chavez, no Maxi Arruti yet, no Adam Lundqvist, no CJ Fodre, which is kind of surprising given how much we've seen Mazzaferro and Valentin Noel, at least in the first match. No Jackson Valti either, second round pick. And of course, no Leo Väisänen. So I think that's about it on the Austin FC first team side of things. We did get an Austin FC 2 signing announced this morning. This was rumored. And I will say this segment, and we may have to do a little spin-off pod, like a mini pod going forward just for Austin FC 2 recaps and such. And if we can, Rocky, I'll credit Rocky on Twitter, who came up with this as we were discussing Austin FC 2 and next pro rules and regulations. I think we're going to call this segment every pod, or if we do the little spin-off pod, last business day, in reference to the match day roster rules there. So getting into our last business day segment here. We did see this morning, EJ Johnson signed or announced officially by Austin FC 2. And so EJ is Emmanuel Johnson is his full name. He's on a season-long loan, and we do have a purchase option on him, and that is he's coming from Hibernian FC of the Scottish Premiership. He's 19-year-old, originally born in Fairfield, California, so American citizen. Played for Sacramento Republic FC's academy and the Barca Residency Academy in Arizona before he signed with Hibernian last February. And then he spent this last season on loan at two different clubs. First at Charleston Battery. So he was teammates with Charlie Asensio last year for a time. And then the second half of last season, FC Edinburgh, of Scotland's League One, Edinburgh. Yes. Helping me with Edinburgh.
Edinburgh. Edinburgh.
Yep.
Edinburgh. No.
It's not Borough. Edinburgh.
Edinburgh. I'm telling you.
Okay, hey, I trust you.
I'm serious. I almost went to grad school at Edinburgh. I'm serious.
I thought you were going to just stop there. I almost went to grad school.
Believe me.
Okay. Well, isn't there? But there's an Edinburgh, right? And it's spelled that way.
I just feel wrong as hell now.
Well, so do I.
Edinburgh. All right, we got to come on, move on.
That team is in Scotland's League One, so I imagine that's just a level below the Premiership. So EJ joins as a winger here. We are now up to 8 official Austin FC2 players. Lopez down to Pinkham, Toure, Bobasi, Torres, Rodriguez, and now Johnson. And of course, Austin FC2 began practice last week, so we're still going to see a lot of signings between now and I imagine kind of the end of February, because again, these teams, this game, the schedule for Austin FC2 begins in late March. And then I guess really the last thing to talk about here regarding Austin FC specifically this week is we did get, I won't say resolution, but the next step in the Claudio Reyna saga. He did step down. He resigned from his position as the sporting director. You know, where did the club hide this? Here it is. Club, you got to scroll on the website, of course, to find this press release now. So Reyna, did resign the sporting director position, so no longer the general manager, but like I said, I don't think there's resolution here because he still remains with the club in a technical advisor role. And the quote from Anthony Precourt was that Claudio has been committed to the cause of building a club that inspires Austin, and he will remain in a position to contribute to our organization. The others shuffling around there in the front office, Josh Wolf will now also serve as the club's chief soccer officer on an interim basis and lead the sporting department. Then Sean Rubio, who served alongside Wolf and Reyna as the director of player personnel since he was first hired back in 2020, he was promoted to interim sporting director. So there's your restructuring after this move. So I guess, what are your thoughts here? Because for me, until Claudio Reyna is completely severed ties with Austin FC, I still, just in my mind, and it may not be right, but it's hard for me to believe right now that he doesn't still have a heavy say in what's going on with the player personnel decisions here.
I agree. I think obviously he is having some level of input on this stuff. The thing I'm probably most worried about with this whole situation is the dual position for Wolf. It's just an extra layer of responsibilities for our head coach.
Sure.
So I don't know. Can't we just send Danielle Reyna to can we force her to live in Kyle, Texas? Just be done with this. Claudio absolved.
That's the punishment.
She has to move to Kyle. And we'll just let it go. Yeah, I don't know, man. I really don't. It's hard to understand because if we felt like it was bad enough where we needed to get rid of him, right, then we didn't get rid of him, then we didn't feel like it was bad enough to get rid of him in the first place.
Right. Well, and that's for me, that's what I don't feel like I have any sort of further clarity on this situation, because we don't know the results of whatever this investigation that the U.S. Soccer Federation is conducting. And then on the same day, right, Ernie Stewart and Brian McBride both out. And obviously, and I believe the last update from the Soccer Federation is Berhalter still in consideration as they're, kind of weighing their options for who the next head coach will be. So yeah, man, I mean, when it comes to Austin FC, I just don't, and I've maintained that if more comes out about Claudio and it's clear that there was like blackmail, if those allegations are true, then my tone will certainly change. But until I see something, I'm just going to, and again, it could prove very foolish, but I'm just going to trust what they said. And like Claudio is not like, obviously not 100% like in the clear here, right?
Yeah.
At minimum, he was helicopter parent and using his standing, his friendships with everybody in the soccer federation to try to manipulate, the minutes for his son. And that's not a great look, but it doesn't have anything to do with our team.
No.
And so unless I see some more wrongdoing in terms of his character, right? Again, if the blackmail does come out, I will renege on my stance here. But until then, I have no issue with him sticking around. And I think it's a bonus because despite what some people may think, Claudio Reyna has been very good in his position. And I don't know how you could say otherwise, given the team made it to the Final Four last year in its second season. They're certainly not the most successful expansion franchise through the first two seasons, but they're above average at worst. And especially where we were as fans and as a club coming into last season. Mm-hmm. Come on, man.
I mean, it's got to be a top 5 performance for an expansion team in their second year in MLS.
Especially starting from scratch. We're not coming as a USL side to MLS. We didn't have an academy in place beforehand. So again, I don't think we need to,
it's absurd.
We both are Claudio fans in terms of his work for the club. I think we're both at this point pleased that he's still somewhat tied, pending more information about what the hell went on in December.
Absolutely. And if new information comes out, just like you said, I too will change my tone. But the man has been nothing but successful in his role as sporting director for Austin FC. Mm-hmm. The success of this team in the second year is a direct link to the players that he brought in, the roster they constructed, the team that they had in mind when they brought in Wolf. Mm-hmm. And they said in this formation, everything that they wanted to build. So, I mean, I still hope that he is obviously making, an impact on the transactions for the roster, just without the title, and like, if that's the punishment, it's like, hey man, you're not the sporting director anymore. Well, you know what? His goal wasn't necessarily to be the sporting director of Austin FC. It's to bring a championship to this team.
Sure.
So he can still accomplish that in that role. And like I said, I think the thing I'm most worried about is the Wolf situation. But other than that, Claudio has been great. Yeah.
And again, we'll when more information comes out, we will discuss it further, but I think that's where we can leave it comfortably for now. Again, Euro transfer window deadline day. So some big names being talked about, being moved around MLS today, and not necessarily all to Europe. We'll start here today, just before we hit record. Chicho Arango. Again, LAFC did not want to extend him, so he has been transferred to Pachuca down in Liga MX. I imagine he will get a contract extension there in Pachuca. So Chicho Arango out of MLS, most importantly, out of the Western Conference. And interestingly, Pachuca on the other side of the bracket in CCL from LAFC. So potentially Chicho Arango going up against LAFC. Not just in CCL, but I imagine as the two teams on bye in Leagues Cup later on this summer, potential for them to meet in the championship match of Leagues Cup as well. So any thoughts there on Chicho? Like for me, I just don't understand why they didn't want to extend him. Probably, salary negotiations, whatever, but like you can't deny his talent. That guy was scary when going up against us.
Happy that he's gone from an Austin FC perspective. Will be much happier to watch his immense talent and highlights from afar. He's doing all that good stuff down there. He can go ahead and go crazy all he wants. I also don't understand why they wouldn't want to re-sign him. I guess when you just have a pipeline for awesome players and a roster that's loaded with talent, you can be a bit more harsh in your negotiations.
Sure. I mean, 27 years old, 51 appearances for LAFC, 30 goals and 7 assists in those 51 appearances. Goodbye. We, as Austin fans, will not miss you. Also, rumors that Jose Cifuentes expected to be on his way out today. No destination yet that I could find. And we've got some news breaking here live as we're recording. This was rumored earlier in the day. 9 minutes ago, confirmed. Julian Araujo, I believe, is how you pronounce that. Pronounce that. I can't even pronounce. We can forget about my pronunciation issues. Holy cow! By the name of this team, where he's going.
Okay.
From LA Galaxy to Barcelona.
Woo!
Yeah. Hector Bellerin, I believe, on his way out at Barcelona. So Julian Araujo in loan for the rest of the season, I believe, with a $7 million purchase clause. So if Barca did decide to purchase the young right back from the Galaxy after the loan expired, that would be a kind of surprising to me, a club record for the Galaxy if the $7 million purchase option is picked up. So, I mean, you can't argue with the name. Where's MLS sending a guy to Barcelona?
Absolutely. And again, see you later, man.
Yes, yeah. And we'll talk a little bit more about the Galaxy, I think, coming up in a minute with some of our nonsense at the end of the pod. Another big name here in terms of where they're coming from. Nottingham Forest apparently put in multiple bids on FC Cincinnati forward Brenner. Apparently since he countered, and as of now, a deal is unlikely before the window ends later today. So, we don't have to worry too much about Brenner sitting there in the Eastern Conference since he's not on the schedule. And especially after he put up, I think, 18 goals, 6 assists last year, somewhat quietly up there in Cincinnati.
Yeah.
I wouldn't hate to see him leave. Just, go making a move to the EPL and bolstering the league, the MLS standing in the world. We not upset if that happens down the road. Doesn't look like it's going to happen yet. Cincy also busy on their back line. Completed a loan signing today of Colombian center back Yerson Mascara from Wolverhampton. So 21-year-old had not debuted for Wolves yet in the EPL. But the club is still, it appears, high on him because loan, no purchase option. So he will be headed back to Wolves, or at least that's the plan right now after a season with Cincy. Two more here, Red Bulls DP Patrick Klimala, long rumored to be on the outs after he kind of fell out of favor last season, transferred to Israeli club. I'm not even going to try this one.
An Israeli club.
HBS is what we'll call them.
Nice.
He had 13 goals, 10 assists, and 57 appearances with Red Bulls. And then Atlanta, we mentioned that they had entered the running to try to sign Georgios Giacomakis from Celtic last week on the pod. Urawa Red Diamonds had been the favorite in that race, but now Tom Bogert reporting that Atlanta apparently going to sneak in there and grab Giacomakis as their third DP up front. Celtic has accepted the $4.7 million bid, and the only thing standing in the way of this being finalized are the personal terms, which are under discussion. Any other takeaways from today's MLS news?
No, sir.
Yeah, exciting. And again, it's about 3 p.m. here in Austin. Probably some more news that we'll just have to pick up on next episode. Let's get into some of the nonsense here. We had no nonsense last week. It's back this week. And it's just the beginning because the nonsense is going to ramp up as we head towards the season beginning on the 25th. Today, we're going to discuss who we think had the best and the worst off seasons in MLS so far. And so initially, right, we said, all right, we'll each go and get 3 for the best category, 3 for the worst. And then we talked about who we had picked before we hit record today. And so we're just going to say these are joint choices because our top 3 for best off seasons were the same, just in a different order, but same 3 teams. And then we also overlapped on a couple of the worst teams as well. So we're just going to say these are the North End Podcast's best and worst off seasons.
What was your order
for best?
Yeah.
Well, initially I had Portland, LAFC, Orlando City, and then I swapped today Orlando and LAFC. So LAFC third now because they lost Chicho. I just think like they just have more flexibility now. So I couldn't drop them all the way out.
Yeah.
But now there's just a little more uncertainty as we record today.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you have to take into it. I mean, that's what happened to me too. I took once they lost Chicho, I swapped them with Portland.
Mm-hmm.
So I have
Orlando. Let's start with Portland then.
I mean, when you bring in a guy like Evander.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing is Portland didn't do hardly anything. Re-signed Fagacha and then brought in Evander from Midtjylland. That is a pronunciation. Do you remember when I tried that one for the first time? I got it down now. So,
yes.
Give me a couple months on some of these other clubs and player names, and we'll be good. For me, and I assume you have kind of similar thinking here. If you look at the table from last year and where Portland ended up, they were 8th, obviously didn't make the playoffs, but this team was 4 points away from hosting a home playoff game in the first round. We know obviously that going up there to Providence Park is one of the toughest places to play in MLS. They were not good on the road last season, struggled a little bit with injuries, but even goal differential. I just think, like you said, adding Evander and not like the rumor at the beginning of the season or off season, especially when Evander was signed, because he was signed early December.
Yep.
The rumor was, okay, Eric Williamson now is going to be on his way out. But the fact that they haven't moved Williamson, and from things that I've heard surrounding that team, you can play both of those guys together. Like Evander is maybe a little bit or has been a little bit more versatile in his career than initially thought or reported just kind of on the surface.
Mm-hmm.
So like adding Evander to a team that was already, again, didn't make the playoffs, but was a game and a half basically out of the top 4 in the West. Given what we know about that franchise, I just think you didn't lose really anybody of consequence. You brought in one of the biggest signings in league history in Evander financially. Mm-hmm. I think their ceiling is top 3 in the West. And again, this is a team 18 months ago was in the MLS Cup final.
Yeah. I mean, I'm right with you there. Your entire thought process is the same thing I had when I put them first. Mm-hmm. You bring in Evander, you don't overreact to what could be considered a subpar season for that franchise, and that happens a lot where teams are like, oh, we got to blow it up. We got to make all these changes. They didn't really lose any impactful players. They bring in Evander. You roll with this core again. Obviously, they have talent throughout the field. They were my number one. And not because they made giant splashes. They made one very large one. Mm-hmm. But more so to the point where they didn't have that roster turnover.
It's contagious.
Portland sitting at the top spot for us here.
Yeah, the consistency is, I think, going to end up I think we're going to be like 2 months into the season, be like, holy shit, Portland.
I mean, and dude, even last year with that team, I love that team. You don't lose I'm never going to really count out the Chara brothers, Asperia up there.
Yep. Your boy.
Good squad. Yeah. They're a good squad.
Who'd you have number 2?
Well, initially I had, I had Portland at 2.
Okay. So who was your number 1?
I'm sorry. Yes. My number 1 was Orlando.
Okay. Well, let's talk Orlando.
Well, for me, I'm starting with Dagger Don because I'm a Dagger Don man.
Thorhalson. Dagger Don man. This guy straight off the Viking ship.
Yeah. The Yo Brother Where Art Thou crossover there.
Yeah, that was very
Dagger
nice.
Don man. The Viking from the land of ice and fire. 22 years old.
Yeah.
Obviously a very talented player, comes into that midfield role, and again, versatile.
Mm-hmm. And sorry, go ahead. Interrupting your Orlando talk there.
No worries. Obviously they get the great Felipe. Which is
huge.
Which is big. I mean, it's big for your team. It's big for your team chemistry. They got a generation.
Big for your culture.
They got a Generation Adidas kid.
Mm-hmm.
What's it, Shakur?
Yeah, we just call him Shaq, right?
Yes. Okay. They grabbed him. I mean, for me, the amount that they signed and picked up, transferred in, was just something to look at and be like, okay, this is one of the most active teams this offseason, and the players they brought in are going to fit into what that team does and wants to do well moving forward.
Completely agree. Not just the guys they brought in, but like you said, the guys they re-signed, like keeper.
Yep.
Mauricio Pereira re-signed. Pedro Galese, right? One of the better keepers in MLS, re-signed. Just important guys sticking around. I think Junior Urso leaving, that was the mutual termination of his contract, family issues. That was obviously a blow there. But and some of the transfers, like Martin Ojeda, I believe, is occupying a DP spot for them, coming from Argentina's first division. He was with Godoy Cruz the last 2 years. 12 goals, 3 assists in 2021 and 23 appearances, 27 appearances last season, 6 goals, 9 assists. So, I think there's a team that was certainly up and down in terms of their regular season results last year, barely squeaked in as the 7th seed out east. But again, they were 1 point out of 5th there, with 48 points and clearly a team with some depth if you can win a competition like Open Cup. So I certainly think that they are a team that is a force to be reckoned with in the East. And I think the East has even more parity than I think the West will, continuing going forward. So I guess let's go ahead and move on and talk about Team 3 here, which was LAFC. Obviously, we discussed Chicho Arango moving out today. We know about Gareth Bale retiring, right? And like you would think that those moves would put them in the worst offseason category rather than the best, but re-sign Ryan Hollingshead. You bring in Aaron Long as a free agent, and like I know that his best days are behind him. That still, in my opinion, just still doesn't mean that it's not an upgrade for their back line to add Aaron Long.
Absolutely.
We talked about Stipe when he got signed, right? Stipe Buke, the 20-year-old, was 40 under 20 or whatever list he was on in the UEFA rankings over there. So getting him as a U22. We know Maxime Crépeau obviously broke his leg, MLS Cup final. He's on the mend. So, let's just go get Jakupovic, right, from Everton. I know the guy hasn't started in a few years, but like career EPL quality keeper, started in the EPL for so many years, and like bringing that guy in just as a stopgap till you get your, all-star keeper back in Crépeau. With that combined with the flexibility that they now have, with Chicho off the books, with Gareth Bale's spot that would have converted to a DP in the summer window. Now they have this open DP spot. So and we know that even the roster they have without those guys is one of the best, if not still the best on paper in the league. So LAFC just had to be up there.
Absolutely. Totally agree. Even with the Chicho news, it just bumped him down a spot for me. Also, you mean they lost Latif?
Yep. Yeah, traded him though, right?
There, it's like, but
traded
still,
Cabral.
Yeah, but still, the Stipe, I think that dude is going to be given. I hope it's not a long time over here in his MLS career,
right?
Because he should pop back over somewhere a little higher. But man, he's going to be giving nightmares and headaches to a lot of teams this upcoming season.
Well, it's like shit. But even if he did well enough to make a move quickly, then like he's terrorizing us, and the rest of the Western Conference. So I guess let's talk some of the teams we thought had poor off seasons here. Our bottom 3. I think number 1 for both of us was Montreal, correct?
Correct. I don't see how it could not be for pretty much everyone.
Right. Or like certainly just you have to have Montreal if you have a bottom 3, right? They have to be in there.
Yes, it was just a mass exodus over there.
You lose Mihailovic. You lose Breza, the keeper, right? You lose Wanyama, although he is back now. He was expected to not return. But that is just really the only silver lining to the offseason here, in my opinion, for Montreal. You transfer Alistair Johnson to Celtic. You transfer Ish Kone to Watford. You lose Wilfred Nancy as coach, who was a huge driver of the engine for Montreal last year, even like, again, not on the pitch, but like he had those guys firing on all cylinders, especially through the second half of the season. It was the hottest team in the league for a long stretch there. And the fact that they really haven't, like, again, you re-signed Wanyama. Did I call him Wembanyama at first?
No.
Okay, good. Good. Victor Wanyama, of course, back. Aaron Herrera came over from RSL in the trade. George Campbell from Atlanta in the trade. So you've got reinforcements on the back line. But Mihailovic, Kone, Johnston, all off this team now. They're just, I think they're going to take, we talked about it, right, in the Vegas odds when we discussed that last week, right? There's no way that this team is going to replicate what they had last year.
Not a chance. And, I mean, to speak to losing your coach as well, especially when you're operating with a subpar roster, you as a coach can get that team 2 to 4 extra wins throughout a season. Through proper management, through the right adjustments made at halftime. That's big.
Yeah. And I think that's what Nancy did last year, right? Like he pulled some games out of his ass for Montreal last year with his personnel decisions.
Absolutely. And I mean, weren't we speaking about him being, manager of the year, coach of the year?
I think, it was Curtin that got it, but I think Nancy was second.
Okay. Yeah. So, I mean, that's huge.
Yeah.
So
of course now Nancy in Columbus.
Yep. I mean, for me, they were my number one. That was a no-brainer, really. And yeah, to your point, it was just a mass exodus of players there and talent. Just like you lose Ish, man. Like, we'll see.
Let's also talk about the LA Galaxy. I know we both had them on the list. I did mention Kevin Cabral when we were talking about LAFC. Of course, he's on or was on the LA Galaxy now in Colorado after that trade. But we know Grandsir, Cabral, Kleshchen, Vasquez, Klinsmann, Derek Williams in the trade to DC United. Like all of those guys, not necessarily the biggest names, right? And they did re-sign Jonathan Klinsmann there in net, sign Chris Mavinga and Memo Rodriguez, but that's it. So you bring in 2 new guys. And now, as we talked about, I'm not sure if this is why you put them there, but everything going on with the impending sanctions in the upcoming summer transfer window, the fact that their fans are boycotting the team right now, to me, that factors in here in terms of like having a poor offseason. And I think there's a case that the Galaxy, given what's going on just in their culture right now, there's a case to be made that they had the worst offseason or are still having the worst offseason.
Yeah, I mean, I tried to look at it just from like roster standpoint, but losing your fucking fans is pretty catastrophic.
Yeah,
it's hard to come back from that. Which I mean, we joke and laugh about it, but like, I want that team to be relevant and good and supported. Like it's good for the league. But they are in a pretty disastrous situation right now, especially given what their buddies over there just did, winning the cup, bringing in these players. There's a clear divide. I won't say Lakers, Clippers. But, it's an LAFC town now.
It does seem that way. And I just can't I just hope for, I guess it's for the league, for the players, for the fans there, that come the 25th, when El Tráfico happens in the Rose Bowl, that we do have Galaxy fans there because there's a resolution. It doesn't appear that that's in the cards, at least at this point, though. So Galaxy, definitely I think, again, like Montreal, I think have to be in your bottom 3 just given the state of the club as a whole right now.
Totally agree.
Last one here, NYCFC. And I think this one, maybe more so than the other 3, based on who they have lost. I mean, we talked about Alex Collins, signing with Girona last week. Obviously, they transferred Tati out mid-season last year. Sean Johnson did sign with Toronto in the last week, which, you're losing Sean Johnson, but I think they're pretty darn high on Matt Freese, who they traded for from Philly.
For sure.
You also had and again, I'm not sure the pronunciation on Heber or Heber there, whatever it is. He played a big role. Maxi Morales transferred to Racing Club Acevedo, loaned out. Santi Rodriguez loan expired. And they really haven't brought in like game-changing names, for lack of a better term here. And so I just think NYCFC is certainly not going to be contending for the wooden spoon. But it's all relative, right? And I think when you take everything into consideration this offseason, NYCFC have had a bad one. What are your thoughts on that team? And then maybe, I guess, any other teams you wanted to touch on before we close it out?
Yeah, they just did not do a good job of maybe not replacing the talent they lost, but at least mitigating the loss of the dearth of talent that they, just from loans or transfers or whatever it may be, contracts expired. They did not make up that gap.
Yeah.
And to me, they're trending in the wrong direction. And I think obviously with a club like that, they can make some moves. Any New York team is going to have some sort of advantage, especially working with their national guys,
owned by Citigroup. They've got resources.
Yeah. So, but yeah, for me, they were my third. I had a close RSL with them. And then on my winner's side, I don't like to say it, but Frisco had a bit of a nice offseason.
Yeah? You like what they did?
I do. I think they did well. I feel like they were a dark horse candidate to get into that. Maybe not the top three, but I thought they had a solid offseason.
Well, I think we would be remiss too if we didn't just give our guys a pat on the back, because I think Austin has managed this offseason fairly well.
Yes.
Too. Just really couldn't break into the top three for me, but I'm not going to hate on anybody who would put them into their own personal top three.
It definitely crossed my mind. And I just thought maybe it would be a little too homerish for us here. And especially given the other three, what they did, but nothing to scoff at getting Zardes, getting Väisänen, a great draft.
Yeah. Then Jeffel, Ocampo Chavez, and re-entry and waivers. And now Amro Tarek.
Yes. So. And no Pochettino.
Yeah. Get him out. Goodbye.
Addition by subtraction.
Yeah. Well, that's going to do it for us, everybody. I guess the one thing we can plug coming up next week, very excited to be doing this. It's some real nerd shit, but we are what we are here. And we're going to host next Tuesday, February 7th, 7:15 p.m. Central Time, a best ball draft for the 2023 MLS season. Best ball, for the uninitiated, is a type of fantasy sports. Essentially what you do is if you are doing fantasy football, right, with NFL, and you get together with your friends or your family, and you draft your team, and you do, you manage it all year, you set your lineup, this and that. In the best ball format, you draft a team, and then you don't do anything the rest of the season. Basically just a certain number of your players that are the highest scoring for that week make up your team's score for a given game week, and then you add the scores week by week, and we see how the table shakes out throughout the season. So we will be competing against some of our favorites, some of your favorite, everybody's favorite Austin FC podcasts. Texas Ring of Fire will be here. Moon Tower Soccer will be here. Top Flight Pod, a.k.a. We Are Austin TV. Those guys will be here. And then, again, that will be live streamed on our YouTube and Twitter feeds. So we're extremely excited to do this kind of, silly exercise, competition. We're competitive guys throughout the season. And I'm sure there will be plenty of discussion, not just about Austin FC as we go through that draft, but about MLS as a whole as well. And really, kind of kicking off February, right? Our preseason coming to an end, the regular season beginning here in a few weeks. So we've kind of teased some of the fun stuff that's coming up over the last few pods. That'll be one of the fun things that we're doing this coming month, the best ball draft on Tuesday, February 7th. So Hope to see people tuning in there. Of course, we'll take, comments and questions and all that stuff while we're on the stream from any viewers that tune in on the YouTube or on Twitter. So very, very excited about that. Anything else from you before we close things out?
Just come and be a part of history.
Yeah. This has to be the first MLS best ball draft ever conducted.
Ever. So you can be a part of history, fantasy sport history, MLS history, all in one shot. I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be fun. Looking forward to getting with those guys. And, just doing some cool content. And I'll kick it back to you.
Yeah, it says the mooch will kick it back to me.
There
the old trusty pup there coming into frame as we close things out here on episode 28, our Alfonso Ocampo Chavez episode. We appreciate you tuning in if you stuck with us through this hour-plus episode. Again, we appreciate if you got 5 seconds and you can rate, review, and subscribe to the podcast wherever you get your podcast, or if you're tuning in on the YouTube channel, hit that subscribe button. The thumbs up on the video helps us out with the old algorithm as well. And you can hit the notification bell to know when a new episode is posted, or when we go live, like with the best ball draft this coming Tuesday. We do plan to have some live stream content throughout the season. And that'll do it here on episode 28. We will see you guys at Verde Hill if you're making the trek out there on Saturday. We will see you on the live stream if you tune in next Tuesday. And I think we will also have probably a more abbreviated episode, but an episode nonetheless of the pod next week as well. Busy times here for the Austin FC faithful, us included. And really, really excited for the calendar to turn to February here in about 8 hours. But until next time, everybody, vamos Austin FC. Goodbye.